Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about how we can seamlessly implement a specific card using which a user can add items to the card without logging in. And then later, when he decide to check out, then he can sign on and then he can later register. This will not only increase the revenue and the sales of the e-commerce platform because people won't bother signing in and doing the registration first. Instead, they will be focusing more on the items they are looking for and they are going to add it. And then later, when they want to check out, they can register themselves. So without further ado, let's quickly go to the code. So let me just quickly run our app. Okay, so you can see over here, like we do have our eShop application ready, but without logging, this add to basket is not enabled. And we have to log in first. And once we log in, then we are able to go to the basket and then we can see the basket. So let's try implementing the seamless basket. We are going to modify the service first and the service that is related to the basket. So we are going to modify the CreateBasketForUser to a different name. Let's just call this Get or Create Basket for User. And instead of user ID, we are going to provide a user name. So let me just do one thing rather than just modifying this way. Let me just rename it. So rest of the places got renamed as well. Get or create basket for user. And again, for this, I'm going to change this to username. With this being done, let's just remove to the get basket and the create basket because we are going to do it within this function. So with this being done, add item to basket and checkout will still remain the same. One more thing we need to implement, that is going to be transfer basket. The transfer basket is going to be used when the person who have already added certain items to the checkout, and then when he wants to log in, he needs to transfer all the items that he have saved to the newly registered user. So that's the reason we are going to use the transfer basket. And transfer basket is going to use the anonymous ID and a string username. We'll be discussing more about this anonymous ID further down the road. So transfer basket is there. Let's just close this. Let's just try to make it, let's implement this. So let's go to the, let me just collapse this up. This is the get or create basket for user. So we need to modify this because previously it was just for creating a basket. Now we need to modify it to use the get or create as well. Let me just rename this because this is going to be username. There are a couple of other changes which I'm going to do one by one. So one thing that we are going to use is we are going to use the specs. So specific specification pattern is going to come into the play over here as well. So let's just create a basket with item specification. So this one is we are going to do, and what we are going to provide this, we are going to provide a user name to this. Moving forward, we need to use the repository. So we need to use the repository so we can reuse certain code, like we are going to use this basket, but this time this is not a new basket. We are going to, what we are trying to do, we are trying to pull it from the repository, and within the repository, rather than adding, we are going to get the list, and we are going to provide the specifications, basket specifications to this, and the first or default item needs to be pulled. The reason is that we are trying to get the specification, and then we are going to get the basket. And then we are going to check if the basket itself is null. There is no basket. Then what we are going to do, we are in turn going to call another method, which itself is going to create a basket. So let's just call this create basket for user, and not this one. Let me just call this create basket for user, and we are going to provide username to this. So this is going to be sort of a private method we can have. And with this being done, I will be implementing it later. So let's just remove this. Let me just, and in case if there is a basket, so what we are going to return, we are going to return a create view model, create view model from basket, and we are going to provide a basket to this. So these are the two methods which we are going to create later down the road. So let's just create this one first. So let me just try generating this, and what we are going to return back, we are going to return this basket view model. And let's just start implementing this. So what we are going to add, we are going to add a view model. So this is going to be a new view model because we need to return it back. So let's just create that, and then we'll be setting the properties. So let's say view model ID, it's going to be the basket ID because we have been provided with the basket ID. Then we need to go to the view model, and we need to use the buyer ID. And in the buyer ID, again, we are going to use the basket.buyer ID. With this being done, let's just move further with the items because we need to have the items. And what we are going to do, we are going to get the items from the basket. And what we are going to do, we are going to use the select, and then we can call I, and a lambda function is going to be used. And what we are going to use inside that, let's just do this, and we are going to use item model. So this is going to be new, and this time you might remember we do have two view models. One was basket view model and one was a basket item view model. We are going to use basket item view model, and inside that what we are going to do, we are going to set the ID, unit price, I.unit price, and what else we need to set, we need to set the quantity, and quantity is being set, and then we need to set the catalog item ID, which is going to be this. Let's just have a semicolon over here. So with this being done, what we're trying to do now, we are going to get the item from the repository, and this is going to be item repository which we have with us. And let's just try to get by ID, and which we are going to provide, we are going to provide the catalog item ID. So we have just pulled the item, one item is being pulled, and what we are going to do, item model. Okay, just one mistake, let me just rename it. So with this item model, what we are going to do, dot picture. So you might recall that we need to use the URI composer, which we have implemented in our previous videos, URI composer, and we are going to provide our item URL to this, and which is in turn going to change this. So this is one thing. Now then let's just item model dot product name. We are going to set the product name, and what we are going to do, we are going to return this item model. So not this, the semicolon, and because we need to use this, so let's just provide it back as a to list. So let's see. Okay, so you can see we have our view model ready and having ID and buyer ID, and this in this items we are having a list of all the items, and then we are going to return the model. So let's just return the view model, return view model. So we have created this method. Let's just try to create the CreateBasketForUser method. So let's just create the CreateBasketForUser method. I'm going to keep it this private as well as of now. In case if need be, we might change it to public if we have to use it from outside the class. But for this time, let's just keep it private. So with this method, let's just implement a new basket again. And new basket is going to be having a buyer ID. And for the buyer ID, we are going to provide the user ID. So just one thing, rather than using the username, we are going to use the user ID. We can call this username or user ID as well, but let's just rename it to user ID. So with this being done, let's just use the basket repository and then just try to add the basket. We have just created a new basket and we try to add it to the repository. Then what we are going to do, because this is for the first time creation of the basket, so we are going to return a new basket view model, basket view model. And inside that, what we are going to return, we are going to return buyer ID. We are already aware that what sort of buyer ID we have. Then we need to have the ID. ID is going to be the basket ID. And what else? Item is going to be a new list of items. So list of items, which is going to be this. And so this is sort of a empty basket. So we have implemented that. Let's just move to the newly method that which we have added, like this method. And one more thing, the one which we are not referencing anymore, like GetBasket, I'm going to comment those out. Let me just do this first so it doesn't create any sort of confusion. Let me just select this and commenting this out, and a public definition for this was also there to create basket. So let's just comment that out as well. So two methods which we have removed from our interface are being commented now. Let's just move to the transfer basket. So within this transfer basket, what we are going to do, we are going to implement a transfer basket. So let's just do step by step. What we are going to do, again, we are going to use the basket aspect. So we are trying to pull the new basket. So let's just use the basket item basket with item specification. And what we are going to provide this, we are going to provide the anonymous ID to it. What else we need to do? We need to use the repository. So far, I think if you are following my videos, you might be well aware of using this specification pattern as well as the repository pattern. So with this being done, let's just use the basket, and within the basket, we are going to use the basket repository, and we are going to get the list basket spec dot first or default. So this is being pulled. Now we need to check if the basket is null. So let's just check if it's null. So what we are going to do, we just say that the task is completed because we are just returning a task. So task.completed task. This way we are returning back. And if the basket itself do have something, so let's just do one basket.buyer ID. We are going to set the basket buyer ID to the username. And what we are going to do, we are going to update the basket repository. So let's just update the basket and then return. So what we have achieved over here, if the specific, if we are able to pull a basket which is being tagged with an anonymous ID, we are going to update the buyer ID, the username, and then we are going to return back. So this way, the basket is being transferred from this user to the other user. So with this being done, let's just see anonymous ID. What is happening? Okay, we need to do one more thing within our basket with a specification. We have just one sort of like public constructor that accept integer, but we need to add one more. So we'll be quickly doing it in a while. So with this being done, let's just move ahead. I'm going to add a constants class. So let's just add a class. This class is going to contain a string key. So let me just add a class over here. Over a period of time, you will realize the reason for using this. So I'm going to call this class constants. So the key that we are going to use is going to be, and we are going to keep this as a static class. And the key that we are going to have is a public constant string, and the string is going to be called basket underscore cookie name. And what we are going to call this eShop CKC. So this is something which we are going to use in a while. So with the service being modified and the service definition being modified, so let's just move to the actual controller, because we might need to modify the actual basket controller as well. So let's just move to the basket controller. So within the basket controller, we need to inject the sign-in manager, because we'll be using that sign-in manager. So let's just try to inject the sign-in manager. And you might recall that for the sign-in manager, what we are going to use, we are going to use the application class. Application user, sorry. And we are going to call this sign-in manager. So with this being done, what we are going to do, we are going to create a private variable, which we used to do as always. So let's just use this, and let's just create this method. So we have our sign-in manager being injected. So that's one thing. Let's just try to collapse all the method. Let me just remove this. What we are going to do, previously we were trying to get the basket from like a session async. So we are going to rename this, because we are not going to pull it from a session anymore. So we are going to change it to GetBasketViewModelAsync. So rather than calling this, we are changing it to this. So with the name being changed, there are like certain changes we might need to see. Let me just move inside. So over here, what we are trying to do, initially we were pulling it from the session. So let me just change the code and see if the sign-in manager is signed in. So if the user is signed in, I'm going to get the HTTP context.user. So if this user is signed in, so what we are going to do, we are going to call that respective service method. So let's just call that. And what we are going to do, we are going to call the basket service, and in the recent method that which we have changed or modified, so we are going to call that, and we are going to provide user.identity.name. So with this being provided, but we are just returning the basket. And in case if it doesn't exist, so what we are going to do, we are going to call anonymous ID, and then we are going to get or set basket cookie. This is a method which we are going to get or set basket cookie, which we are going to set in a while. And what we are going to return then, we are going to return the basket service, but this time we are returning it not with the username, but with the anonymous ID. So hope you are getting along with me. Now let me just close this. I think the rest of the things we are going to comment out. or let me just remove this altogether. This being done, let's just move further. Now let's implement this cookie method. Let me just generate that method, and this is going to return a string. So let's just try using if the request, if our request, which the request is coming, to have a cookie which like contain key, and what's key it is going to contain. Let me just mention, I should mention the key name. So the constant class that we have defined, so we are going to use that specific basket key. So this key, if this key exists, what we are going to do, we are going to use that key name. So just a return, and we are going to use that request dot cookie, and what we are going to get, we are going to get this constants dot cookie. So we are, in case if it do exist, so we are going to return that cookie. But in case if that doesn't exist, so what we are going to do, we are going to do the create an anonymous ID, and with the GUID we are going to use the new GUID. And with this being done, let's just set a cookie options, some cookie options too, and this is going to have a new cookie options. Let's just set a few cookie options rather than secure. Let's just use expire. Let's just keep 1 year, like expiry to 1 year. Let me just use today here 1. So this is the expiry date. And what else? In the response, what we are going to do, we are going to append this cookie. So within the cookie, we are going to append this back. And what we are going to append, the specific key which we have already used using the constant. And what else, we need to provide the anonymous ID and the cookie options. So with this being done, and let's just return the anonymous ID. So in case if it's anonymous ID, so we are going to return that. So with this being done, let's just try to rebuild. I'm still thinking that we are going to face some issue, but so far we have implemented certain methods. So let's see what happens. So we have received an error, and you can see we need to change this, because if you can like look at this specification, we do have one public constructor which is accepting basket ID, but we need to implement one more which is going to accept a buyer ID. And this time let's just use the basket item specification, and this is going to be a string. And what we are going to call, we are going to call this buyer ID, because we want our basket to accept the buyer ID as well. And with this being done, let's just try to set it up. Let's just use the buyer ID, and using the buyer ID, we are going to use this buyer ID, and let's just try to create a read only. Let me just move it alongside this, so at least we get to know how it's working. We have our buyer ID. One more thing we need to do, we need to use the add include for the items. So this is you might be aware of that for the eager loading, once we are trying to pull that specific basket, we are trying to pull all the items in a single DB call. So that's the reason we have this. If you are not able to follow, please do watch previous videos in which I have explained the whole thing. One more thing which we are going to do is we are going to change this basket ID to become nullable. So there might be a possibility that we might not get this basket ID. And one more thing that we need to do is to change this criteria. So because we are not just going to accept the basket ID, but along with this, we might be expecting specific buyer ID as well. So let's just try to change that. What we are going to do, let's just move this the criteria that we are going to change. And over here, let's just check if the basket ID which we are setting has value. And if it do have value, then we are going to check for the basket ID. Let's just reuse it. And if this b.id is equals to basket ID dot value, because we have just implemented this as a nullable. So this is one thing. So this is one part. And then we need to see if in case the buyer ID is not null. So let's just use the buyer ID is not equal to null. So what we are going to do, we are going to use the buyer ID as well. So b dot buyer ID is equals to buyer ID. So this is a criteria which we have just modified. So that's just one thing. Let's just try to run it. I just want to quickly show you we are able to build it or not. So with this being done, so you can see we are able to build, but still this is not showing up as clickable. If you can recall, we have implemented our product component. You can say a view that was related to the product. So let's just go to the shared underscore, not the shared one, but the product. Okay, so this one inside the catalog, there was a product catalog. And if I can quickly show you, there was a class being applied. In case if the user is not authenticated, it is going to apply a is disabled class. So let's just remove that check. And let me just save it. And let's just try to run it. So I can quickly. So you can see without login, I'm still able to click add to basket. So let's just try and see if it works or not, or am I going to receive any error or so. So you can see this is being there checkout, but there is no provision to see the basket, because if I navigate back, so I can't see the basket, and there is no link to directly go to the basket. And let's say if I added one more item, so there are two items, but I can't go and see those two items. So let's just quickly add a link in the layout, so at least we can navigate to that basket link. So if you can recall, in our layout section where we have added this login partial, so post this we are going to add another section, and this section is going to call, let's just add a section. Let me just call this again somewhat. Let me just copy this so we can reuse it. Let me just try to copy. And with this being done, let's just change this catalog to basket, because we are going to hit the basket controller and in index controller of this. And no image is going to be used. So let me just remove that. And let's just within the a tag, what we are going to use, we are going to call this basket, and then a tag is being closed, then the section is being closed. So let's just try to run and see. So you can see we have the basket available. If I click it, you will find it empty. The reason is this, we are using in-memory database. So let's just try doing one thing. Let's just add this item, and then I quickly go to basket. So still the basket is okay. Let me just navigate for somewhere else. So you can see now, instead of adding any item, I'm just quickly going to the basket, and you can see this is being added. Now try the thing. Oh, okay, rather than having just one item, let me add a few more. So we have two within the basket. We are going back, and we can see our basket is still there. So let's just try to log in, and let me just log in, and I have my user being logged in. So let's see if the basket have been ported to my user. No. So seems like something have been missed. For some reason, the basket is not being moved to my like account. The reason is that we have implemented the service, the basket service, but we haven't properly used the transfer method. So let's just try to implement that. Open the accounts controller. So we need to modify the accounts controller, because post sign in, we need to transfer the basket, and then we need to remove that cookie. So let me just add the code over here. So within our controller, we need the basket, access to the basket. So let's just inject the IBasketService. And with this, let's just call this BasketService. Let me just add the basket underscore BasketService. We just create. Okay, so within our sign-in, and you might recall that we do have two sign-in methods. So within the sign-in post method, we need to implement this. We need to check the state of the model. So if the model state is valid, so if it's valid, what we are going to, if it's not valid, what we are going to do, we are just going to return the view. So just return the view model, and in case, then we are going to have the rest of code being available, and this valid because we have already checked. So let's just remove this one. Now let me just remove this curly brace as well. Just adjust it a bit. So, and what we are going to see over here, if the result is succeeded, what we are going to do. So in case if we are able to log in, this is somewhat, this is going to stay similar because we are trying to use the password sign-in. But if we are able to successfully log in, what we are going to do before redirecting, we are going to get the anonymous ID. And how we are going to use or get that, we are going to use the cookies, the same constant dot basket cookie name. And what else we are going to do, if this cookie name like do exist, like string dot is null or empty. If it's not a null or empty, then what we are going to do, we are going to transfer. We are going to call the basket service, which we have just injected, and then we are going to call the transfer basket. And what we are going to provide an anonymous ID, and what else, like the model dot email, because email is the username. So that we are going to use. And what else we are going to do in a response, we are going to remove that cookie because we have already transferred that cookie. So we are not going to use that cookie name. So rest, we are going to use the same thing. This view might not be reachable. So let's just remove this code and let's just try to run it again. So this time I'm going to add a couple of items. So this is one item. I'm going back to the basket. Let me just click that. Okay, sorry, I need to go back to the catalog. Let me just add that. There are two items. So let's just go and try to log in. So I'm logging with the existing user. And this time, let me just navigate to the basket. So you can see all the items which I've just recently added. So these are available. One more thing, let's just log out. And if I'm going to go to the basket, because I have just cleared that ID, so there's no basket. So hopefully you are able to grasp till here. Okay, so I'm hopeful that you might be able to grasp certain things and you are able to get hold of how we can implement like a basket without logging in, and then we can later transfer. I'm hopeful that you are able to follow along with me, but if you face any issues or there are certain things which you are not able to follow along with me, so feel free to leave it within the comments. I'll be trying to address it in the upcoming videos. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe and share it within your circle. So thanks for watching. Have a nice day.